Hi guys, Kim here with This Fat Girl Life, and we are doing a bonus episode. I actually have 2 bonus episodes tonight, so I feel like totally full of love because I've got some amazing guests tonight. So this first bonus episode, I have Ted with me. Ted, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Kimberly. I'm excited.
Of course. Now, you guys, as many of you know, and I'm very expressive about the fact that I am a very proud ally. I completely support the fact that love is love. I don't care who you love, as long as it's not like, inappropriate stuff between like adult child stuff. I mean, that's not there. But, in general, love is love. And we all have a right to love whoever that other person looks, however that looks, whether it is same sex, different sex, multiracial, it doesn't matter, because love is a heart condition. And that's what these episodes are celebrating. So, Ted, before we go into your story, why don't you tell everybody just a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I am Ted Smith. I am based in St. Louis, Missouri. I am an author and a coach, and I identify as gay.
So let's kind of jump right on in. When did you realize that you were gay?
It's always an interesting question to be asked. On some level, I always knew I was different. And as a kid, I grew up in a small town in Illinois, and very sheltered as a kid. And so for the longest time, I didn't even know gay was a thing. Didn't know it existed. It wasn't until the bullies on the school bus, teased me for being gay, that I had even really heard the term and even started to think, oh, okay, so that means this. And then when I started to hit puberty, I realized, okay, yeah, there's some truth to, the bullying that I've been dealing with for the last several years. So on some level, I always knew I was gay, but probably around the start of puberty is when it really started to click.
So at that point, it starts clicking. Do you go to your parents, or is that something that you kind of kept to yourself for a while?
I kept it to myself for a while. So when I was in 7th grade, I actually began a relationship with a girl who was in the class ahead of me. And it was a very confusing, in a way, experience, because I had these questions of, my sexuality leading up to that. But when I met her, I really enjoyed being with her in every sense of the word. And so I didn't quite understand that. My gay feelings weren't going anywhere yet. I really enjoyed our relationship. We ended up being together for 4 years through high school. A year into that, so when I was growing up, I really didn't have many friends. I was ostracized and teased a lot, like I said. Just didn't really fit in. And when I met her, that was kind of my first experience with a best friendship as well. And so a year into our relationship, I decided to confide in her that I thought I might be gay. And it was the first person I ever told that to anyone. I was still unsure myself, but I feel like I was looking for support and understanding from her. And of course, now as an adult looking back on this, I think I'm not really sure what I was thinking as far as, wanting support and understanding, because understandably so, when the guy that she'd been dating for almost a year told her he thought he might be gay, she did not react well. We both grew up Catholic, and so she had a strong religious background as well. And, leading up to that event, I had become to understand what gayness was, but I also hadn't really been exposed to the rejection that can exist from the church and the religious aspect of things. She had, however, and she reacted, quite emotionally, and it was my first experience with rejection from someone that I truly loved and trusted. And it was also my first experience with someone visibly sharing how sinful and disgusting they thought homosexuality is. I will caveat this entire story by saying that she and I are now like closer than ever. We had a great, few years together, and have remained really good friends since then. Had done a lot of growth and healing, and kind of enjoyed seeing each other's separate paths along the way. But for that time, we really wanted to be together, and so we both naively thought, you know what, we're going to stick this out and we're going to fix this. I'm going to fix myself and she's going to help. We see how that turned out. But like I said, I did always have these conflicting feelings of wanting to be with her. And so by the end of our 4 years together, I had concluded that I was bisexual. It would explain how I had the attraction to guys, but yet I had, loving and as well as a physical attraction toward her. After we ended things, which had nothing to do with my sexuality, I still remember the conversation, sitting on her bed in her bedroom, and I don't remember the exact words that were said, but it was basically an energy of, so I guess we're done here. It was this like peaceful sunset and mutual understanding that like this is, this relationship has served its purpose. And then a few months later, I met my first boyfriend and realized, okay, I'm gay. I'm not bisexual. So that's kind of how things evolved from that standpoint. But leading up and through all that, the 3 years of being with her, that it was kind of the last year when we had determined or decided that I was bisexual. The 3 years leading up to that were really challenging. I went through a lot of shame, a lot of self-rejection, just not loving myself for who I was, and wanting to be somebody different than something that I couldn't help, and that took a toll on me, and took time to heal from.
I am so sorry that you went through that. That hurts my heart.
Yeah.
That okay. It's going to be a night of tears. I can already tell. Because like they're already coming. I hate knowing that anybody has ever felt like that. And how do you get to a point of healing from that?
At the time, I was a teenager, so I didn't really have the adult approach to healing and understanding that I have now. So I needed the external validation, the external love, and fortunately for me, my family was very accepting. I didn't share anything with them until I was 17, and a couple months into that relationship with my first boyfriend. my mom approached me on Thanksgiving Day, which um, Thanksgiving Day, ironically, is like a second National Coming Out Day. For whatever reason, it's when a lot of queer people come out to their families. So it just is funny. And
Well,
it wasn't something I initiated. It was something that my mom started the conversation. So I fit the bill in that respect as well.
well, I mean, it makes sense. You've got a very captive audience.
Mm-hmm.
Kill
Yep.
multiple birds with one stone.
Yeah, exactly. Um, so it was Thanksgiving morning. I was still living at home, so I was a senior in high school, and she approached me and she said, "So, who's this guy that you've been spending a lot of time with? Is that more than a friend?" And in my head, I'm like, "Oh God, here we go." um, and I said, "Yeah, he's more than a friend." Um, very loving, very accepting response. But I think, we were all very sheltered in a small town, and so it's my perception of her response was that she wanted to make sure I knew what I was feeling. Um, and so she had me speak to my older sister, who was at the time studying to be a child psychologist. There's an 11-year gap between us. I was a happy surprise as a kid. There's a large age gap between me and my older siblings. Um, and so she and I sat down that day, and I can still remember her starting the conversation, like, I don't know why we're having this conversation. Like, I don't know why mom's having us do this. Um, but, very loving and understanding there too. And then my mom ended up telling my dad, which I was more concerned about how he would react, but he was great as well. And there was one, like when we first had the initial conversation, he kind of made a comment about how, yeah, a lot of kids your age kind of go through a period of time where they think they might be. And I'm like, I'm going to stop you right there. I have been sitting with this for a very long time, and I am 100% certain that this is who I am. And he said, okay, all right. And he dropped it. And my parents have been very accepting since. Family, very accepting as well. And mom actually did the coming out for me. I didn't actually have to have those difficult conversations. So, of the coming out stories that I've heard from the community, like, I feel like I had a very easy, blessed path, for which I'm very grateful.
Your family sounds amazing. Absolutely amazing. So, going through all of this of, figuring out, I know I'm not straight, but I don't know if I'm gay, to I am 100% without a shadow of a doubt gay, no question. What was the hardest part of all that?
Uh, that's a good question. Um, the hardest part, like I said, was the turmoil in between. It was less about the label and trying to figure myself out, and more about the rejection of, I want to be something different than who I am. I mean, I remember so much pain and tears. I did a lot of writing as a kid, um, and journals that I filled with just really shameful, angry, sad entries about not wanting to be that, wanting to be different. It was hard.
So, when did you hit that point of being proud of who you are?
Yeah. By the time, so I entered into that relationship with my first boyfriend, and he and I shared, some coming out experiences as well. We came out as a couple to our friends and stuff like that, so that was an experience as well. It took some time. I was probably early 20s, I would say, before I look back and can say that I was proud. because, for the first few years that he and I were together, it was not everyone knew. And even in college, like I went away to college to a bigger city here in St. Louis, and I didn't come out to any of my classmates because I had such a history of, unlike my family, the kids, my peers in school did not treat me very well for being gay and for being different. And so it was very much a learned process of not everybody accepts people for that type of, way of being. And so it took me some time to feel comfortable with myself and be able to be proud of myself, even if somebody didn't like it that much. So I would say early 20s. Very long answer to your question.
No, that's fine. Through your experience, you've already said, what the hardest part was, what the scariest part was. What was the shining moment, best moment of it?
What comes to me when you ask that question is, so when my ex-girlfriend and I ended things, like I said, it was very mutual, very friendly. My mom, though, protective mama bear, thought that she had broken my heart. She didn't realize that the 3 months that followed, so there was a 3-month period where I was single, where she and I had ended things, and then I met my boyfriend 3 months later. That was a really challenging 3 months. Age 17, and I say this with a smirk because it was very naive of me at the time, but being in a small town and not knowing anybody else who was gay, like social media wasn't a thing at the time, and so I thought I was going to end up alone. I was convinced that I would never find love, and I try not to dismiss those feelings because they were very valid. They were very real at the time. But of course, I say it with kind of a smirk because 17 is kind of young to be feeling that way. But anyway, once my boyfriend and I were together and my parents met him and accepted him, there was also a reconciliation and a coming together with my ex-girlfriend where the two of them shared a loving hug, and my mom thanked her for being there for me because nobody else was there for me during those years of me coming to grips with who I was. So that was like bringing everyone together that I loved and who meant a lot to me. That was a pretty powerful moment.
So I have one more question.
Okay.
Knowing what you know now, living the life you live now, living your truth, if you could go back and speak to that young, scared, confused boy, what words of advice would you have?
It's always a great question because while I went through a lot of pain, I went through that pain for a reason, and I'm very grateful for it. And so in no way would I want to change my experience. I think I would just simply tell him, remember that you are loved for who you are.
I love that. I absolutely love that. With your permission, I'm actually going to make a little image of that that's going to go on my page.
Yeah, I'd love that.
Because that touches me.
Wonderful.
Ted, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story and your experience with us. I am honored that you wanted to share with myself and with my audience. I am honored to have met you and to have connected with you. So thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciated this opportunity, and I hope it's been helpful for some of your listeners. And I really appreciate you and for what you're doing. So thank you.
Of course. You guys, that's all for this episode. I am going to be back on at 8 o'clock, 7:30. 7:30. Have to look at a calendar. I'm going to be back on at 7:30 with Gabby and Irene, who are going to be sharing their story. And if you thought I shed a little bit of tears here with Gabby and Irene, I ugly cried for a good 30 minutes just talking to them the first time. So
Beautiful.
even if you just watch to see me ugly cry, you guys tune in.
I love it.
I own my ugly crying. You guys remember, like I said at the beginning of this, love is love. It doesn't matter who you love. Everybody has the right to love somebody and to be loved. You guys, if you are being helped, being moved, being touched in any way by these bonus episodes or the bonus episodes that I've done in the past and want to see future bonus episodes, please consider becoming a listener sponsor. Go to buymeacoffee.com/thisfatgirllife. There are multiple ways to become a listener sponsor. You could do it as a one-time sponsorship, or there's 2 different sponsorship levels that you could also do where you will get member sponsor only content. You guys, I hope you have a great night. I hope to see you here in a little bit. Bye, guys.
Bye.